To be honest, I'm not really sure if this is actually true. But if that's true, you surely wanna be respectful in Japan, don't you? And that's why today, I'll be showing this guy as a great role model. Because at least in my eyes as a Japanese person, he's one of the most thoughtful, considerate, and respectful foreigners I've ever seen. And I think anyone coming to Japan might wanna steal the behavior and mindsets. Maybe some people disagree on that though, and just find him cringy or arrogant, as he complains a lot about everything.
Am I the only one keeping this alive? Do you guys not appreciate sandwiches?
I just complain about everything.
But to be fair, that's mostly when he's talking to non-Japanese people. If you pay attention to when he's interacting with Japanese people, he's clearly adjusting the way to talk or behave into Japanese way so well, and succeeding in being respectful. Having said that, what he still finds really difficult, like many other foreigners in Japan, is not capable or knowledgeable enough about formal ways of speaking or how to use the honorifics, which is honestly super complicated in Japanese, and this is what you should keep in mind.
In English, how you talk to your friends is in a lot of aspects the same way as how you would talk to your boss. Whereas in Japanese, we have formal Japanese and informal Japanese. The words we use are completely different.
But the reason I'm gonna feature this guy and what I wanna emphasize is, even if you can't be verbally respectful, I do think you could still convey your courtesy, respect, or formality to people in Japan by your attitude or behavior, just like Connor does. But at this point, some people might argue that, why would I bother in the first place? I'd rather play the gaijin card, which make anything I do or say in Japan forgiven anyway.
Playing the gaijin card basically means you get away with shit that Japanese people wouldn't be able to get away with in Japan, but they forgive you because you're supposed to be like a mindless foreigner.
I guess you could just play the gaijin card and get away from anything you do, especially if you are a tourist. But I don't think that's what you really want, because I feel like this is kind of universal, and I really hope we all agree on that, regardless of what differences.
Helping out, others, being a good Samaritan is very ingrained in a lot of Japanese people's minds.
I think most people will help you out if they hey, you have no money here.
And so taking
Even if they don't know you.
advantage of that to make a video which you are going to make money off of anyway, also aiding this person in doing illegal shit, is just the most scummy fucking thing you can do.
Anyway, because Connor's so respectful to other people, it totally makes sense he's been surrounded by the same type of people, and that's actually the reason for his happiness.
And I'm really happy that I have viewers who are so respectful. And I talk to you guys all the time on Twitter, and you guys are so polite.
The same is going to happen to you in Japan, whether you are a YouTuber, streamer, English teacher, or any other occupation. And if I have to give you the reason, chances are that you're gonna need support or assistance from them.
I need your help.
That's gonna make your job way easier. I'm sure these foreigners eventually will never have any support from Japanese people when they need it. Because after all, if you want people to respect what you do in Japan, you need to show them respect first, and not to come off as a threat or nuisance in the culture, which I think he does get right.
And I'm not rude to anyone. It's all about that respect.
To show you how he's being respectful, let's take this video for example, and let me break down his behavior and intention.
自己紹介していただいて。
恥ずかしいね。恥ずかしくない。コナです。YouTuber です。僕の日本語ゴミです。
So this is one of the ways Connors often takes, because many Japanese do. I'm sure you're gonna get this kind of response all the time in Japan. And I want you to know that this is not self-hating or trying to be a negative person. We often skip this part, so it seems like it, but actually what we're doing is giving a compliment. So going back to Connor, he's also skipping this. And what he implies is, I acknowledge your higher position and respect you. And this is basically what he's doing. He lowers the position intentionally, so that the other person gets higher than him and feels respected.
日本語はめちゃ遅い。私話しました。
In the same way, this is actually the message he's trying to get across, which works in Japan, and I'm sure all the Japanese persons in the room got his intention and appreciate it.
聞きやすい声ですね。
ゴミです。ごめんなさい。You made that look so easy that I'm kind of worried that I'm gonna look so bad when I do it.
By the way, Connor's not the only person doing this.
話。もう全然絵が描けないんで。
Now at this point, you might be feeling so weird and wonder why we take the approach. Mainly there are two reasons for that.
Because Japan operates on like a social hierarchy.
Another reason behind it would be the lack of confidence. So I think many Japanese, including myself, wouldn't be comfortable or used to showing any confidence to others unless they grew up in different culture, of course. And we often put too much importance on modesty, which totally makes sense, doesn't it? For example, when it comes to comedy, this works really well here. While in Western culture, especially the US, I've seen many people find it cringy or pathetic. Anyway, you don't have to follow this approach, but just to let you know that that's what we often take, and so does Kona, to show respect in Japan.
You did that perfectly, but if I mess up, what do I do when I mess up?
And this is another his habit that he always executes.
ありがとうございます。Thank you so much. Thank you so much for talking to me. ありがとうございます。Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。Thank you so much, Kaho. And thank you so much for being a beautiful and amazing boyfriend. Thank you. Thank you.
Actually, this is the first thing we get taught in Japanese education, so deeply ingrained into our mind since an early age. And that's why compared to other language like English, Japanese has way more words or expressions to show gratitude.
I like how Japanese culture treats others or even objects or food with a polite and thankful manner.
Unfortunately, this is kind of trending in the world these days. So if you come to Japan, why not take the opportunity to express your gratitude more often than usual? Not just that's gonna make other people feel better about you, but also benefit your mental health. 皆さん貴重な時間を本当にありがとうございます。自分の英語はちょっと聞き取りづらいと思うんですけども、こうやって我慢して聞いてくださっていることに本当に感謝しております。When it comes to conversation in Japan, this is what usually happens, so he follows it, which basically means he never interrupts and merely focuses on listening to the other person. In baseball, we clearly separate defense turn and offense turn, and only focus on either one. So in baseball conversation, cutting in someone like this doesn't happen.
You're right to speak your mind about it. What I don't understand.
I'd like to
what
say,
I don't
even
understand.
before the 1920s,
Do you know what I mean?
women could speak openly.
It's not,
well, I
it's
haven't
not,
watched
it's
the
not
whole
a
thing.
but. I need you to watch.
I know.
Okay,
I know
so
what you said about. I know Candace.
I'm gonna finish.
While playing ice hockey, on the other hand, defense or offense could switch any moment quickly.
Can like match the
I
smell
just
of
think
bacon.
bacon is like it's not that great. Like it just kind of tastes okay.
Just give me like a nice piece of pork or ham.
Especially the American bacon.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Depends on the context, of course. But in my experience at least, I would say most people would be confused by that and not really comfortable. So especially in a group conversation like this, probably you often see a Japanese person end up talking nothing.
Why?
That's a good fucking question.
Maybe you're guessing that that's because we prefer baseball to ice hockey, right? Which I don't think is true. I personally know so many Japanese passionate about it. So the bigger reason in my opinion would be that one, unfortunately we couldn't have much class or opportunity to nurture our debating or speaking skills. It's mostly about simply listening rather than expressing opinion assertively. And secondly, jumping into a conversation could cause disturbing harmony and making waves. That's right, it's one of the deru kui wa utareru. And besides, even if you are quiet or passive, maybe you'll get a chance to make your voice heard because everyone's respectful and values harmony. But in the States, for example, that's not gonna happen usually. So you often need to be assertive or aggressive whether you like it or not.
Jump in, just
But, you know,
go
it's
through the
just
wall.
that-
Anyway, from what I see at least, he clearly adjusts to a Japanese-style conversation, which means focus on listening more, nodding frequently, and never interrupts the other person. Also, perhaps consciously, he often avoids excessive hand gesture or movement, making too much eye contact, and using harsh words or swearing as well. Which, by the way, is not just when he's interviewing someone, but pretty much any interaction he gets in Japan. While talking to non-Japanese or other foreigners, he clearly switching the mode and sounds completely different. I'm sure many people already know this, but I wanna remind you in case you forgot. Simply switching the language usually doesn't work, especially if you wanna be respectful. The culture should be taken into account. Anyway, moving on. This is what Kona always keeps in mind.
They probably feel that from a normal person's perspective that like what they do is unusual, and it's my job to be like, hell no, like let's do it.
Many foreigners often find something we do cringy or weird and neglect to even try.
I think as Americans or just Western society, we assume that the whole world is going through the same thing. We always look through the lens of America. Like we always have American lens when we look at different countries.
But this man's clearly different and open-minded. He's willing to experience something that that he's not comfortable or used to, and try to appreciate it, which is actually his biggest strength and reason for the success in Japan.
Utilizing my strength, which was that I think I was I could withstand cringe to a degree that I think other people couldn't.
Now let's keep in mind that our human brain is capable of adapting, and you don't know what you're gonna like actually. For example, this was completely out of his comfort zone, and he has no idea about it. But in the end, this is what happened.
So that was Japanese wrestling, and I gotta say it was a ton of fun, and I've come away with a massive appreciation of wrestling and especially these wrestlers.
The same might happen to you. Whatever you find weird or cringy in Japan, why not try it at least once? I think you don't truly appreciate it till you actually try it, whether that's about food, customer, or people. Which brings my next point.
The most important thing is talking.
Not many foreigners doing it. They only stuck to other foreigners. Maybe because they're afraid of making mistakes or offending Japanese people. And that's why they're still not sure how to show courtesy or respect in Japan like Kona does. Despite of all the compliments I said toward him, Kona's not perfect and still makes a lot of mistakes and feels embarrassed a lot.
恥ずかしがってるから、もっとかっこよく。
That's because I am.
But he's not discouraged by that and still actively interaction with people. That's how he's improving his Japanese a lot and learns the mannerism quickly and effectively. So I suggest you do the same in Japan. As much as you don't want to be a dick or offensive to anyone in the different culture, you shouldn't be too afraid of making mistakes or embarrassing yourself. Otherwise, how would you notice your mistakes in the first place?
You know, you're just living your life, you're just doing things, and you're like, oh, this thing I did could have been damaging to in this kind of way to either myself, maybe people around me, because I just didn't realize.
Biggest help, and this probably sounds like a nightmare for introverts, was going out to bars and just speaking with people in Japanese. And I was really bad at it, but I did manage to hold some conversations.
If going to a pub or bar is not your cup of tea, for example, meetup.com or language exchange apps might be something you wanna take. Or if you are comfortable on camera, maybe you wanna do streaming like Kona. And why not sometimes interview people in Japan and testing out your Japanese? Anyway, there are many ways you can take. And whatever you choose, I think you should keep in mind his great advice.
The way to improve your speaking in Japanese is to speak Japanese. You guys are in a really unique position where you're in Japan, you're interacting with Japanese teachers, you're interacting even with Japanese students. So I think it is so incredibly important to fully utilize that.
And finally, every time he's interacting with Japanese people, this is what he does much more often than when he's talking to non-Japanese.
I'll try and not mess up as much this one. ごめんなさい。恥ずかしい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。Sorry, I offended you. That didn't do you justice at all.
Which you might find weird based on your culture. He doesn't need to lie because clearly he's not making any trouble. But Kona rather take the opportunity to show respect or courtesy. Not just in Japan, but these cultures at least. Apologizing is one of the most common ways to show your respect.
You guys are good. You guys should be voice actors. That's a terrible joke. I'm sorry.
To be clear though, this could be taken negatively even in Japan. And just because you become apologetic, it doesn't mean you'll be respectful. But in Kona's case, it doesn't come off negative. He's clearly genuine and sincere. Doesn't feel fake, at least from a Japanese perspective. Anyway, based on my experience at least, the focus and intention will be quite different depending on the culture. And that's why Japanese people often apologize, even when we're clearly aware that we're not to really blame.
Sorry.
Now please keep in mind that these wouldn't be the only ways to be respectful. So if I'm missing anything, please let me know that in the comment below. And let me thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. ありがとうございました。